All right, let's welcome in our good friend, former correspondent, Duncan Robinson, and new member, officially, of 342 Productions. Duncan, what's up, man?
Thank you for that introduction. Super excited to be a part of the 342 Productions family. And it's nice to know that I've elevated my status from correspondent to an official member. So thank you for that.
You're on the website now. You're on the website.
You aced the job interview.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I guess I should thank my teammates for making a run in the bubble and that I could continuously be a correspondent, and that I wasn't just like a one-hit wonder. So I parlayed it into something more, which I'm appreciative of.
The podcast is called The Long Shot. You'll be co-hosting with your friend Davis Reed, who Tommy and I know nothing about. So tell us a little bit about Davis, your co-host, and kind of what you guys are going to be doing with the Long Shot podcast.
Sure. Yeah. So Davis and I go way back. We went to high school together. He's actually originally from Kansas City. Grew up in the Midwest, but we went to Phillips Exeter for a year. And just ever since then, we've been really close friends. And, when I was approached about the possibility of having a podcast, it's a daunting thought at first to take that on by yourself. So I figured how I could not only incorporate somebody else, but then also somebody that I enjoy being around and I think would do a really good job. And he was one of the first people that came to mind. And ever since we've started, we've kind of been working with the idea for almost about a month and a half, 2 months now. And he has done all of the heavy lifting, which I'm very appreciative of. He's definitely made me look smart in my choice in that he has, I think, just all logistically proven to be very on top of things, which I'm thankful for.
Tommy, have you noticed, Duncan brings up a great point. Have you noticed on the email threads, the two people who literally respond the least? It's Duncan and myself.
Well, I think that's
find
that's
you
fair.
a Davis, find you a Tommy.
I thought you were going to say I'm not doing the heavy lifting, which is true because Kylie does all of the heavy lifting for us. I just sit around. Duncan, I have a content question about the show for our audience. I think you guys listening at home can probably guess a little bit by the name, but you and Davis were very specific, with what you want this show to be. So can you give everybody just sort of a little mini synopsis on what your goals are for it and everything there?
Sure. It's really an opportunity from a storytelling perspective for, myself to shed light on kind of my story, but then also what we're really excited about is to have some people on that have come from underdog situations, overlooked, and catapulted themselves into success. And I think that it'll be kind of positioned around basketball, at least to start. And we're going to have a lot of whether it be my teammates or people I've played against or with, but the goal is to really kind of move into all different fields, and people that have overcome, adversity circumstances and position themselves to be at the top of their respective fields. So I'm super excited about it. I mean, something that I have heard a lot, particularly since I've entered the NBA, is people saying, "Oh, your story is inspiring and it's helped me in this way or that way." And I've kind of had a reluctancy to maybe lean into that. And I think that this platform will provide me an opportunity to do that, in that, I want to try to pass it forward, pay it forward to, whatever it be, a younger generation. It doesn't have to be basketball players, but just what I've learned in dealing with being overlooked or maybe not being in the situation that you want to be in. And then also, I want to have those conversations with other people who have had similar trajectories or journeys throughout their lives and their respective livelihoods. So I'm super excited about it. Storytelling is something that I've always had a passion for, and podcasts alike. So I've always listened to podcasts. You guys going all the way back. So I'm just excited for the opportunity, and I think it'll grow. As I get more and more comfortable hosting, and you guys are obviously a well-oiled machine at this point. So we got some catching up to do, but we'll see.
We're pumping out content. Tommy, here's a question I have for you, and I'll share some as well. But do you have any tips for Duncan as he begins his journey in hosting a podcast? What are some tips that you've learned that you can share with Duncan?
Well, I will give a tip which is going to be a compliment to you, a compliment to JJ. But what part of what for the audience, and Duncan knows, is part of what attracted sort of JJ and I to Duncan in the first place is like a player to do this with. We've talked to a few different guys who've entertained the idea of doing a show like this, and Duncan, I think one of the things that makes you very unique is your level of curiosity and your interest in things both on the court and off the court, in terms of asking questions. And it's very hard. I think a lot of people don't understand this, about professional athletes and celebrities in general. It's very hard to, when you're so used to being asked questions, to turn around and ask other people questions. It's just not in your nature. And so JJ has been good at that, really from the jump. He's obviously gotten better as the show has gone on. But the other thing I think, in terms of tips that Duncan, like, I know you're going to do, but it's the amount of preparation that JJ does for these shows, I think is a little bit crazy in a good way. Where I think the listeners don't always realize necessarily that, like, with even like we had on the episode with Iger on Monday, when you were looking up the stock price of Disney from like 1992 or something like that, because we always talk about the content before the show and everything like that. And it's not that you need to like read every book and do everything like that, as much as finding a unique way into the conversation that other people who've done interviews with the subject, haven't done. And I think that I think that a lot of the stuff just comes with reps. I mean, JJ, what do you think? Because like talk to Duncan, but then also the audience about like your growth, even doing this since you started, because you've even Coach K. I don't know if you heard the Coach K episode, Duncan, but tell him what Coach said to you about your growth as a podcaster.
Basically, Duncan, he said when he went on my podcast in 2016, when I had it with Yahoo, that my podcasting skills at the time were not worthy of having him on as a guest. I mean, that's a dig from Coach. That is a dig. To Tommy's point, the preparation, Duncan, as a shooter, right? Where do we get our confidence from? We get our confidence from the countless reps that we take every day. Going into a game, like we've got our little checklist of all the shots we've made that day, all the shots we've made that week. That's ultimately what gives you confidence. So the preparation is huge. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't prepare a ton for this one because we've had you on like 5 times. So I just wrote some things down like 20 minutes ago. Hopefully the listener doesn't notice. But I do think the preparation is key. The other thing I was going to say is invest in a really good notebook. Notebooks are key. And one of the things that I learned when I did not take notes during the conversation was, when I ask a question to you, let's say, and you talk for 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, or you tell a story for 3 minutes, right? You may say 2 or 3 things that I want to touch on. I've got to remember those 2 or 3 things and remember the next question and listen, right? You always want to be listening to the answer. And so just scribbling a note, a reminder of something that maybe you want to pull back on or touch on, I think is huge. The other thing I would say is always have just a side water. Huge. I'm going to ask about your own come up. I liked in our promo video for this announcement, you mentioned the word come up. I want to reflect on your own come up because I did some reflecting over the last couple of days on your come up, and I thought about not this time last year, but October of last year, and I would check Miami Heat box scores to see how Jimmy was doing, and I would see this name, this Duncan Robinson, and I'd be like, who the fuck is this kid? Who is Duncan Robinson? And I'd click on the bio and that's all right. I remember him from Michigan. To the casual NBA fan, and I'm an avid NBA fan, not a lot of people really knew who you were this time last year. And then you had an unbelievable season. You guys went on an epic finals run. Have you reflected at all about how much your life has changed over the last 12 to 14 months?
I've tried to. I think actually the quarantine period when everything shut down, I think that actually helped in that it was this kind of unplanned pause in life for everybody. And for myself, it allowed me to just kind of take a breath in that pretty much since last year, the start of last season, as you know, once you get an NBA season, it's just like, okay, what's next? We had a good game. We beat this team. What's next? And it's just you keep knocking things off. So I think pre-bubble, I was able to reflect a little bit. But then, even I would honestly say even pre-bubble to post-bubble, my life actually changed a lot as well. In that I might have just kind of been known around maybe Miami as a guy who could like make some shots. But then the playoff run obviously kind of puts you on at least a different stage to be viewed. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm like Tyler Hero where I can't walk down the street, because he literally has it like that. Like he can't go out in public. I'm still relatively anonymous, which I maintain the stance that I love. But there's good and bad that now comes with kind of being recognized as that, particularly from a competitive standpoint. And like, I don't really get the open looks that I got, particularly at the beginning of last year. I go back and watch some of the tape from last year to start the season, and Jimmy or Bam or Goran or somebody would drive, and my defender would just get in a gap or pull into the paint, and now that just doesn't happen anymore. So from a basketball standpoint, it just requires me to get a lot more creative, watch a lot of JJ Redick film, and figure out a way to get open.
Hopefully you haven't watched film of the last 6 games. You can experience the epic adventure Wonder Woman 1984 in theaters and on HBO Max, now streaming at no extra cost to HBO Max subscribers. Plus, with HBO Max, stream the greatest collection of series, movies, and exclusive Max originals all in one place. Discover something new to watch, like The Undoing, one of Tommy's favorites, The Flight Attendant, His Dark Materials, and so much more. Go to hbomax.com or download the app to sign up and start streaming today. Legal disclaimer, Wonder Woman 1984 is rated PG-13. Wonder Woman 1984 available to stream on HBO Max for 31 days from the theatrical premiere. I was actually going to bring this up later, but you kind of just touched on it. How has the coverage changed? Because I think for guys like me and you, we're labeled by a lot of people as spot-up shooters. But there's a craft in creating shots, because when you get to a certain level of prestige as a shooter, you don't necessarily get those standstill, your defender's in the gap, the ball handler kicks to you, rhythm 3, right? That doesn't necessarily happen a lot. So it's on you to get creative in order to produce shots that you can make. And I'm just curious to you, like the evolution that you've seen in how defenses cover you. And get nerdy here. I love, because people love when we break down the X's and O's. So just in terms of whether it's top blocking or when the pickup point is, or where somebody's guarding you when the ball's on the other side of the court, things like that.
Yeah. So I think the biggest adjustment, particularly in the playoffs in this year, that I've noticed is the physicality. I think that teams have noticed that maybe they've had success, or other teams have had success in just getting like really into my body, particularly when I like to come off those handoffs. The top blocking, I haven't seen actually as much of this year as I did in the playoffs and in the bubble. I think there's still ways to get creative, even with the top block. I mean, something you do a lot, when you come up the other way on that same screen, you kind of cut down and then come back, you're still coming to the ball. So that one is basically still as effective as getting open. So I think, there are guys, and I'm not going to name too specific because I don't want to, give away like who I think guards me the best or whatever, just because, then you have people looking at film and extrapolating, whatever. But I think when people get really physical and try to blow up handoffs, blow up screens, and just use strength, because for me, if I'm able to come off, I don't really view it as good defense because I still think I'm able to get to my shot, and that's an advantage that I have because I'm tall and have a higher release point. But I think I view it also in this way, and throughout the flow of a game, you don't know how many of those relief threes you're going to get, in that whether it be a offensive rebound and a kick out or like a defensive mistake, you can't rely on those. So if I have to get to my 10 attempts, I have to get to those in other ways, in being persistent. And that's a word that Spo uses with me all the time, is you have to be persistent. And if they shut down that first one, you're coming off the backside, you're coming up another way, and just still getting to the ball and still getting to your attempts.
I was going to bring this up because to me, you've gotten really good at this. It's the second action that's even harder to defend. So for example, let's say you come off, you guys set that play where you set the back screen and then you come off a DHO.
Yeah.
And let's say it's guarded really well, and you take that escape dribble and the shot's really not there. But now the defender, right, he's going full speed to try to contest that shot. So what you've gotten good at, and this is what I was explaining to our assistant coach earlier today about that second action, what you've gotten good at, you take the DHO, you take the escape dribble, you got your guy in the move, you throw it back to Bam, then you come back for that second handoff I call it a throw and go. Other teams call it chase action or whatever. But you come back on that second handoff. Todd Wright, who's now with the Clippers, but when I was in Philly, he used to always say, you may catch me the first time, you may catch me the second time, but there's no fucking way you're catching me the third time. and it's that persistence in hunting a shot, because there's a difference in being a spot up shooter and being a hunter.
Right. I think that, and that's why I talk about the most effective defense is to blow up the action altogether, which, mind you, is a really, really hard thing to do. But if I'm able to get to that first handoff, even if you take away the shot on the first one, that chase and that throw and go, you're more than likely going to be out of position to then reconnect and then get me off the second one. So it's like you said, it's almost like if you get to that first one and they take it away, it's like, great, I'll just keep running you ragged. And there's like clips of me, and I've seen you do it as well. There's clips of me from like last year and this year. I don't know if there's like a great sequence of it where Bam and it just looks ridiculous. Bam and I are just literally throwing the ball back and forth to each other on the top of the key. It reminds me of that clip of from like semi-pro.
Jackie
Obviously
Moon.
different scenario, but like the post-up where we're just like only throwing it to each other, just back and forth. And it's just like eventually a defense, like someone's going to make a mistake if you just put them in enough action.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Somebody's going to make a mistake. It's this back and forth in like a 10-foot radius.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just over there. And you're just like, oh, no, I'm just trying to get a clip off. That's all I'm trying to do.
Right.
That's all I'm trying to do. Have you had a major shooting slump yet?
I had one in January of last year. It was like a 7 or 8 game stretch where I just couldn't make anything. And it's so frustrating because like everything feels the same except like just the result of the ball going in or not. And that's where I try to have like the mental fortitude to be like, don't get caught up in the result. Don't get caught up in the result. Like just maintain, like keep doing the same things and it'll come back. But I mean, I've definitely had slumps throughout my career, definitely in college, stretches where I felt like I couldn't make a shot, but that was probably the biggest one. Last January, I had a stretch where I just felt like I couldn't make anything.
Here's what's crazy about the NBA. Was it an Ice Cube song, I think, where he says no, maybe it was Jay-Z. It was all good just a week ago. It was all good a week ago. Like the NBA, you have so many games in such a short amount of time. Like you could have like a 3 or 4 game stretch, and I'm on a 6 game stretch right now. We're recording this a week before we release it, but I'm on a 6 game stretch right now. I'm literally 6 for 40, in 6 games. Like I've never had a stretch like this before. And then you reflect back and you're like, man, like 2 weeks ago, like I was feeling pretty good about my game. And sometimes in the NBA, it could be like 5 days ago, I felt like I was unstoppable. And then you have 3 game stretches where it can be really frustrating. It can be really frustrating. How did you get out of it? How did you get out of your slump?
I mean, it cuts both ways in that, like, the compounding confidence of when you are feeling good, like you just start to feel like invincible and then everything's going. And you're right, like it can just change like on a whim, and then all of a sudden you just feel like you can't make anything. In terms of how I get out of it, I try my biggest, and this is what I tell people when people ask, like, you know, how do you develop consistency, is like I try to treat my like craft of shooting as any sort of habit that I would have. And I try to do it every single day the same, so that, you know, whether you have a great game, whether you have a poor game, you're still doing the same things. So at some point it's just going to even out and it's just going to find its level. But like the moment I feel, and I used to do this, like I used to shoot after bad games, I used to do that sort of thing. But like now I feel that the moment you try to like overcompensate is then you're like throwing everything off. You know, it's like, it's almost like, okay, now you need to get extra shots because you missed, you know, you went 1 of 8 or 9. It's like the work you put in beforehand, the habits you were building on a day-to-day basis weren't good enough. So now you need to supplement your work with additional reps. It's like, for me, like consistency is everything in shooting, and that you want everything to be the same every single time, or at least try to, you know, whether that be form or whatever. So that should be the same for your routine. I don't know if you feel the same way, but like it just do the same thing every time.
Right. I've never been an extra shot guy, even when I'm in a slump, because I'm like, I already shoot extra shots. I already do all these extra things to work on it.
Yeah.
And the flip side of that too is, ideally, right, we're the pendulum is like this for shooting, right? A good night is 6 for 10. A bad night is 3 for 10 or 4 for 10, right? You can't expect too many 1 for 10 nights, although I've had a few lately, and you can't expect too many 9 for 10 nights, right?
Yeah.
So the flip side of the argument, you should be getting extra shots up when you're in a slump. Like if you're going 9 for 10, would you go get extra shots up?
Exactly.
No, you trust exactly what you're already been doing for however many weeks or however many months, or, you know, for professionals, however many years. You know, we've been doing this a long time. It's a new year, so leave what you don't need in the past and sell those luxury items at The Real Real. The Real Real is the most trusted source for authenticated luxury consignment, and you can sell everything from women's and men's luxury fashion and accessories to fine jewelry, watches, art, and home decor. It's easy, items sell fast, and you earn more, up to 85% of the selling price.
The Real Real has made selling simpler than ever. Choose your own virtual appointment time and meet by video with a luxury manager. They'll walk you through the selling process, give you price estimates for your items, and help you decide what to sell. After your appointment, The Real Real will arrange a free pickup. You can also sell in person, safely, and easily at one of The Real Real's locations across the country, or just request a free shipping label to send your items in.
Selling your luxury items with The Real Real isn't just smart financially, it's sustainable. Your items will find a new home with one of our millions of luxury shoppers, and you earn a return on your investment. It's a win-win. Start selling and earning today. Visit therealreal.com to book your free appointment. I want to ask Duncan about trade rumors, because this is the first time that you've had to deal with this professionally, I believe. I don't remember seeing your name in trade rumors last year, and we don't need to name the specific player. I think we all know who we're talking about in terms of, you know, who these rumors are about. But from your perspective, has that been different at all? Have you been able to block that out? Because it is hard with social media and with talking heads on TV to not hear the fact that you're in a trade rumor. I'm sure someone in your circle sent you a clutchpoints.com link to a trade rumor about you recently.
Yeah, the frustrating thing about trade rumors that I had the luxury of not knowing about until this year is that, at least in my case, like, my really close friends know not to do it, but it's kind of like that, like, second tier of people be like, yo, did you see this? And it's just like to think that, first of all, that I wouldn't have seen that somewhere if it like involves me and it's like trending to the point where you saw it. One, makes no sense to me. And then two, the other side of it is like, we're oftentimes not, we don't have the type of relationship where it makes sense for you to send me this anyways. Like my really close friends get it. And like, you know, I kind of keep like a tight circle in that sense, and that they know kind of where I'm at with everything, and they know what there would be to know in that type of thing. The one thing that has been like kind of dangerous about the trade rumors is that my mom, who struggles with technology in general, I love her obviously, but like she has some Heat app. I don't even know how she has it. Like I don't even know what app it is. It's like not an official app. It's like some blog or whatever. And she just gets all the updates pinged right to her phone. And occasionally it'll boil over and she's like, no, I'm not going to talk to Duncan about this. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then all of a sudden it's like, it's gone too far. And there's like some, you know, reliable quote unquote source who says that I'm like in the mix. And then she calls me and be like, are you seeing this? Like, is everything okay? Like, do I need to do anything? And I'm like, just don't listen to, like, if you hear anything, like, hear it from me. And it's a real challenge. I mean, I know this is something that Tyler and I talked about too. There was definitely a stretch, particularly in training camp, where it was just like you couldn't pick up your phone without it being on there in some capacity. So it's definitely a challenge. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with it throughout your career. I guess you just try to block it out as much as you can. It's unrealistic to think that it's going to be blocked out entirely, but that's just kind of the nature of the profession.
It's definitely unrealistic to block it out entirely. My father, who is the greatest man I've ever known, also has notifications on his phone in regards to me. And I'm pretty sure my brother does too, because I've noticed in the last couple of years, like, it'd be like, he's normally 2 hours behind me. He lives in Denver. And, you know, I'm usually in New York, the East Coast or whatever. So he's like, he'll like send me these things at like 11:30 at night. I'm like, bro.
I thought you said it best. You've said this a bunch to me over the years. Like, for the by and large with NBA trades, most of the big NBA trades that happen, you don't know that they're happening until they happen. So every once in a while there'll be an exception to that, and I understand why the rumors, you know, everyone gets clicks off of it and they get views and all that stuff. I understand why that is what it is, but for the casual observer, it's sort of like take everything you read with a grain of salt, because for these things get out there for a reason, or they don't get out there for a reason, and for the most part, you know, it's like don't believe everything you read.
I think agents and teams definitely leak things when there are trades that are in the works, either to throw off the scent or to sort of gauge the marketplace. Like, what's the reaction going to be to player X and player Y going for player Z? There was a trade, a blockbuster trade, my first year in Philly in the NBA, and I knew about it for like a week, and there was not a single rumor about it. Not a single rumor. And then it just, Woj bomb, Shams bomb, whatever, it just happened. And that's generally how I feel like these things tend to go. Hey, what's up, everybody? JJ here, Duncan Robinson. We have a very exciting announcement for you from 342 Productions.
We are launching a podcast that will be hosted by myself and my good friend Davis Reed, called the Long Shot Podcast. It's going to be all about, you know, underdog stories, come-ups. Appreciative JJ for the opportunity.
We've been grooming Duncan since the bubble, so we're very excited about this to launch with 342, the Long Shot. Check it out. It will be live ASAP. Here we go.